Welcome to Simple Answers with Dr. Z, a question and answer podcast produced by New Beginnings Assembly of God to help bring clarity and grow your relationship with Christ. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Stephen Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope this podcast blesses you.
Welcome into our 9th edition of Simple Answers with Dr. Z. I'm Travis Green. This is Dr. Z. He is Stephen Zemanek. That is Randy Green. He is a most holy reverend here on the podcast. We appreciate you tuning in, but we also want to show our appreciation to our wonderful crew that makes this whole thing run. That is the Prabhus. This is a New Beginnings Assembly of God production, which means only the best gets on the YouTube channel, on the audio stream, however you're consuming this podcast, you're consuming it at the highest quality because of John Prabhu and all his hard work, and of course his assistant.
We don't actually even look like this. This is all generated on a computer.
Yeah, I'm super skinny, and
I'm tall, dark, and handsome.
And I'm the fat one.
well,
So it doesn't always work.
well, this is a simple concept. It is Simple Answers with Dr. Z, and we take your simple questions, faith-based most of the time, and we bring them to air, and we talk about them and give our answers to the best of our abilities, which sometimes you may feel like is not an ability at all.
It will be a miracle if we make it to number 10, which will be our big episode.
Yeah, we're going to throw a party on number 10, so you better stay tuned.
The double-digit episode.
Well, I want to start off with our friend Anonymous. We haven't heard from him or her in a while. And Anonymous asked this question, and I think it's a really interesting one. One, because I am a deacon at our church, but for two, I think it's something that people probably can see something like this happen in their time in church. And I have you guys on pins and needles, yes. Right? The church I attend has recently made some interesting choices on how to spend their money. I know that we are to entrust our deacons and leaders with this, but is there a good way to approach this topic without turning it into something more?
Might be someone from your congregation sending this one.
It's actually me. I am anonymous.
Dr. Z, I think it is a fascinating question to ask. Is how, I guess, first, what is there a biblical approach to this? Because it's something that some people may sit back and go, I don't like how they're spending the money, but I also like the humility that they took and said, hey, I want to approach this in the proper way. So that's why they're asking us, because we're trained professionals.
It's in Matthew.
How do you spend your money?
Yeah, well, and I think it's Matthew's chapter 7. If not, we'll have John edit it and put in my mouth the right chapter. But I do think it's chapter 7, where the principle applies, especially when dealing with money in church, because money and church are inseparable. Money is the way the church operates, and at the same time, it is the way that we worship God. And so you can't separate church from money. You can try, but you won't be worshiping God, and you won't have church. So do however you want.
Can you separate church from state? Never mind.
In episode, I think in episode 6 or 7, you could.
Somewhere in there.
But there are some principles, and they apply to every area of life, especially with money. Jesus is recorded as saying, look, if your brother offends you, you go to him privately. If the matter isn't settled, you take 2 or 3 with you, witnesses, not people who are on your side, just witnesses that the conversation took place. And if that doesn't work, you take it to the whole congregation. And so this works with every area of church life. And as a pastor for 30 years, I've been on the receiving end of this. And by God's grace, it's always stopped at the first step, where we were able to deal with why certain things were the way they were. So when it comes to money, you have legitimate issues. If you're not giving to the church, you have no right to complain about how the money is being spent. That's just the way it is. But I'm assuming you are, that you're loving the Lord with your tithe and offering. So you go to the pastor and say, look, Pastor Perfect, because that's what we are. We just want to know why the church is spending $80,000 to put in an in-ground pool when what we need to do is to start a food pantry or whatever it is. Because a lot of times money is spent in a way that doesn't make sense unless you're in the planning sessions. Because a lot of what a church does goes far beyond just the Sunday and the Wednesday activity. And it involves investment in properties, it involves investment in community. And if you're not a part of the ground floor as to we're doing this for a larger purpose, that pool might seem silly. Yeah. But if you're, and I don't know why you'd build a pool, but I'm just using this analogy. If the pool is being built so that you can help kids learn to swim in the community and make relationships with them and draw them into the church and relationship with Christ, might be a way to spend it. I wouldn't, but I'm just trying to make it helpful. So you go to the pastor, and pastor says, I'm not listening to you. I'm the pastor, you're not. You just keep giving. We're not going to talk about this. And believe it or not, there are some pastors who have that approach. Then you go to stage 2. You take a few people with you. If you have elders or deacons, they would be perfect for this. But don't just go grab 2 people you met in the lobby that morning eating donuts. These need to be people that...
Or your cousins.
Or your cousins, who may be actually the same person. But you meet with some people who are in the congregation, established, who have a track record of being involved in church life, and say, look, I went to pastor about a topic, and I don't feel like he even tried to listen to me. And so I'm following biblical pattern. I'm not asking you to take my side when we get in there. I just need to talk with him and have some witnesses that we tried to do this. Very rarely does it ever get to this stage, but it does. And so you go, meet with the pastor. If the pastor A won't meet with you, or B does meet with you and still gives you the same response, you have the right then to bring in the church. And every church congregation has a different way that this is done. Standing up in the middle of worship service on Sunday screaming, I have an issue, is not the way to do it.
Running up and grabbing the mic.
Yeah, run up and grab the mic and say,
style.
yea, verily the Lord has spoken to me. Probably not your best bet. But every church has a way that they're dealt with. A church that I serve, we have a way that it would be dealt with if it ever got to that point. Your humility in wanting to deal with this is very important, because pastors have a lot of stress. We have a lot of things that we're carrying, and a lot of times while we let an initial small group know this is what we're doing and this is why we need to build a basketball court, or this is why we need to buy 3 vans or whatever it is, because we're so busy, we fail to communicate that to the body. And we are a body. In the church I serve, I give and the congregation gives. And while I know why money's being spent in certain ways, at times, even in the church I serve, I have not done a great job of communicating that to people, and I've had to spend time one-on-one with people expressing this is why we're doing that. And to the credit of the people that I serve, I've not had any pushback once we all knew why the money was going this direction instead of that.
I think, and that's what's caused all those issues.
Me?
Well, if you agree with me.
Well, I mean, it's the 3
money.
jets that you have.
Yeah, the money.
Jesus.
I mean, because money, we've seen pastors in the past abuse the money, with the way that they use it. And so, you have to trust your pastor. God puts them in a position. Now, like he said, if they're spending it foolishly, of course you need to approach them, but you do have to do it the right way. But you have to think about, why they're spending the money on it, and then really take it to heart and pray about it instead of just running out right away and grabbing, your cousins or whoever.
Well, and I think you bringing it to...
You guys have a lot of cousins.
I mean, hey, we're from Arkansas. What can I say? No, I'm just kidding. We're not. And your wife is from Arkansas, so I should never have made that joke. Can we cut that out, John? Can we cut that one out? So no.
He's gonna pay for this one.
Yeah,
I think the point is that trust your pastor's wife. She knows everything.
Good save.
But no, I
in
think
episode 10 we'll have a new host.
Yes.
I think the point is it goes back to what you were saying with, bringing it out the right way, because sometimes you may find that there may have been an oversight in what the way the money was being spent, or as Pastor so eloquently put it, not only an oversight in how maybe the money's being spent, but an oversight in how the messaging about how the money is being spent. I think the reason I can talk about that confidently is because serving in those roles, you see certain things, and we have healthy discussions in deacon meetings and in board meetings and different things like that. You have healthy discussion about, hey, is this the proper way to spend the money? You bring up the basketball courts, and it's something that if not brought out in the right way, our church recently spent money. Now, we were blessed with donations, and the church came around us and supported us, so it wasn't a similar situation. But if it wasn't brought out in a way that shows the benefits of why we're doing it, people could get a little upset. So it's okay to go and ask for transparency. Yes. It's okay to go and say, hey, Pastor, I don't totally agree, but I want to understand. And so going back to, if you have an authentic approach to the situation and say, hey, this is what I need to know, and I love how you tied it in biblically. I think that's very, very important.
Well, I have a doctorate.
We're going to continue to dig into that doctorate right after this break here on Simple Answers with Dr. Z.
You're listening to Simple Answers with Dr. Z, a podcast produced by New Beginnings Assembly of God in Maryland Heights, Missouri. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Stephen Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. And now, here's Pastor Steve.
Welcome back to Simple Answers with Dr. Z. I'm Travis Green. That's Dr. Z. That's Randy Green. You can reach us at the emails or the tiny URL on your screen. We have another question. I almost forgot to pull this one up, but this one's from Frank. Not anonymous this time. It is Frank. My family and I attended the same church for over 25 years. However, when that one closed after COVID, we had to find another one. We finally found one that we really like, but they are a membership church. I'm trying to keep an open mind and not be the "that's not how I did it before" guy, but I'm leery of becoming a member. What is the purpose of memberships in church? Pastor, we of course have memberships at our church, so I think you are the perfect person to talk. Why do we have memberships? I've been wanting to know this answer for a while. I sent it, and I'm Frank.
You and me Frank. Both, Frank.
Frank.
Yes, you and me both. Frank, I sympathize with the position that you're in. Having to find a new church after 25 years, I can't even imagine all that you're going through. And then to find a great church that has everything you want except one thing, a little frustrating. Membership doesn't get you into heaven. Nobody goes to heaven because they're a member of a church. Well, unless this church. Membership is a way of, it does a couple things. One, it is a way of showing that you are committed to the mission of the church. Not necessarily just the church, you're the mission of the church. I'll give you an example that's not great, but it's the best one that I've got. I have some friends who, male and female, lived together as husband and wife for several years, but weren't married. And when they are pressed on it, they always say, well, why should we get married? We're already living together as if we are. And someone finally made this statement to them and said, well, you seem like you're only in it halfway. He said, well, a paper doesn't make us married. I said, no, but a paper makes you married in the eyes of the state and everybody else. And so they consented to get married, even though they'd already been living together, had kids, the whole thing. And not making this up, to his credit, he did say, I've noticed a change in our relationship because of a simple piece of paper. I didn't think the paper mattered, but it is a sign of a commitment that I made, and that's what membership is. It doesn't save you, it's a sign of a commitment to that. The other thing that membership does is it does help a church at strategic times, such as needing to get a loan for a building project, being able to show we have these many people who have committed themselves. A bank looks at that and says, okay, it's not just a pastor and 4 or 5 deacons. There's a group of people who actually care.
No.
It could be, it could still be. That's a different episode. But the other thing, and this is vitally important, is that being a member gives you a voice. In our congregation that we serve, we have an annual business meeting, and at that annual business meeting, everyone who's a member gets to see the books, they get to see everything that's taken place, and they get a chance to vote on significant things. For example, if we as a church decided we're going to go and build a new building, we have to have the voice of the members. And we have some wonderful people in our church who are not members. Everybody's treated the same, except at that point. At that point, if you're not a member, you don't have a voice in whether or not we're building the building. And so if you're able to take membership for what it is not a lifelong commitment. It is not leaving behind everything else you've ever done. It's simply joining together, being a part of the stability package in case they need that with an outside source like a bank or such, and knowing that it gives you the right to speak when necessary. I think some of your concerns will be set aside.
Yeah, I think the misconception often with membership, I bring up cult as a joke, but is that of like, oh, now I'm joining this thing, and why do they need this information? Why do they need me to? No, it really is. I love the aspect, and it was something I hadn't considered prior to becoming a member of a church. Is
how painful it is.
Yeah, well, that, but
it's not. It's not.
The concept of it is making a commitment. It is saying that, hey, I will be here. I will support. Now, not support blindly. Let's go ahead and say that. But I will support this ministry and all those things. But also, it gives you a voice, and I think that's something that we live in a world where everybody wants a voice, right? And unfortunately, we have some churches that are not, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we have some churches that are so big that, hey, if you're not a member, there's only so many rings up the ladder that you're going to be able to go to, because the reality is that the pastor has, 1,000 members that he is, handling or whatever. So I think it is important in that sense. It's not a cult. You're not signing up for membership because, you're just going to walk in line and the pastor is going to tell you what to do because now you're a member. I think it is something to give you a voice and allow you to have that opportunity when the opportunity presents itself to help with where the church is going, whether it's in your community, whether it's within your congregation or anything like that.
Now, notice one thing that Frank didn't ask or didn't say was whether or not, his church was pressuring him to be a member.
I hadn't even thought about that.
But, if they're not pressuring you, that's a good thing, because like when you were saying.
Well, that's actually.
Or a member fee.
Yeah, well, that's actually brilliant. I hadn't even thought about the aspect of being pressured. But if a church is pressuring you to be a member, if it was me, and I'm not telling you what to do, I would start looking for a congregation that let me be what God wanted me to be, member or non-member.
It is a very important part, because we do so often feel that pressure. But make sure when you assess your situation that you're not in your mind feeling like they're pressuring you. Make sure that if they are truly pressuring you, to your point, it goes back to trying to decide if I'm leaving a church or all that. Take a step back and are they truly pressuring, or do you feel the Holy Spirit kind of moving you towards becoming a member? Is that tug on your heart, the Holy Spirit pulling you into that church to become a member, to make that commitment to those things? But yes, a great point as far as don't if a church is, hey, you sign a dotted line, that's a little concerning. Again, yes, we joke about, hey, New Beginnings Assembly of God, come and be a member here. But the reality is, I love our church for many reasons, but for that reason of, we don't have like a wall that says, here are our members, and this is where they sit. Make sure you shake their hands and don't shake the other hands of the non-members. Truthfully and honestly, the only people in our church that really know, there's ways to find out, but the only true people in our church who know that you're a member or not is the pastor, the deacons, and stuff like that. And that's for different reasons, again, coming to voting time, but it's not something that we publicize and shame those who are not members. And I think that's a very, very important part. Well, that does it for episode 300. I don't even know where we're at now. No, that episode 9, that does it here for Simple Answers with Dr. Z. And once again, thank you to Dr. Z. Thank you to Randy Green. I'm Travis Green. Thank you to the Prabhus. We have John Prabhu, who is an amazing producer. We also have his assistant this time, Jessel Prabhu. We appreciate all their hard work, and we appreciate you tuning in and sending in those questions to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. Thank you, and until next time, have a great one.
Thank you for listening to Simple Answers with Dr. Z. If you have a question that you would like to have discussed by Dr. Steven Zemanek and the team, please submit it to simpleanswerswithdrz@gmail.com. As Pastor Steve likes to say, whatever you're doing today, remember this: because of Jesus, life is good today.